Awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric
is being recorded.
Technicians, November 17, 2023 board meeting. My name is Carol Mountain. I am the board president. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. First, some housekeeping information on how this meeting will be conducted. This meeting is being held via WebEx. If we need a motion, I will call for a motion. Please use the raise hand function for recognition to make or second a motion. I will take a roll call vote for each motion. We will take public comment on each agenda item. When I ask for public comment, please use the raise hand function for recognition. Members of the public who request to speak will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and you will be notified when you have 30 seconds remaining. Your name is not necessary, but please indicate how you would like us to identify you. For the sake of efficiency, the executive officer may respond directly to public comment or defer to the appropriate staff person or counsel as appropriate. For any questions directed to board members, I will either answer the question or direct it to board members as appropriate. We will now do an alphabetical roll call to establish quorum. Taisha Brown. Ms. Brown? All right, we'll move forward. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Good morning, John Durking here.
Good morning. Mr. Hill?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey? Thank you. Ms. Moore? Okay, we'll move forward. Ms. Neeblis will be joining us later. Ms. Guzman?
Present.
Thank you. And Ms. Sanson?
Good morning, present.
Thank you. And I'm Carol Mountain. Based on the roll call, we have a quorum. All right, I believe we're ready to move on to agenda item 2, introduction of board staff. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everybody. Elaine Yamaguchi, Executive Officer. With us, as always, are Mr. Mark Ito, our Assistant Executive Officer. And let me see if I can do this without terribly stumbling over myself. From Team Licensing, we have Shelley Brown, Michael Hall, Gabriella Areola. From Team Enforcement right now, we have Enforcement Chief Antoinette Wood, Managers Maggie Archibald, Jeff Whaler. I think joining us at some point, Mr. Jay Prouty, Supervising Special Investigator Stacy Gachi, Analyst Rachel Vieira. From Team Education, we of course do have our amazing NECs. I must announce Misty Young is absent today, so so Dr. McLeod will be reporting for Misty Young. Then we also, of course, have NECs Jessica Gomez, Tara Davila, Cindy Fairchild, Charlene De La Rosa, Faye Silverman, Roberta Thompson, Mary Bridget Barrett. And we have, of course, from Team Education, Mr. Nicholas Gonzalez, Geraldine Marcino, Terry Randolph. And I think I got them all. And if I did not, but of course, most importantly, of course, leading our meeting today, of course, Ms. Rebecca Ball. And if I missed you, I do apologize. There may be, of course, people joining later. Madam Chair?
Did we hear from legal counsel?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Ken Swenson, General Counsel for the
Regulations Counsel for the board.
Thank you so much. I believe we're ready to move on to item number 3, agenda item 3, acceptance of the minutes from the August 25, 2023 board meeting. We have minutes from our board meeting on August 25, 2023 to approve. These are included in your packets and posted online. The link to the YouTube videos for the board meetings are printed in this agenda. Can I have a motion to approve and a second for the August 25, 2023 minutes?
So moved. This is Kenneth Maxey.
Do I have a second?
Abraham Hill.
Good
Second.
morning, John Deerking will second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Any public comment?
We are now open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dialers will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. And if you're having trouble finding that hand button, there is a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen where you can type the word comment to request time to comment. You'll be given 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And now let's take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, we do. Thank you. I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown? Not here. Okay. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
You? Mr. Durking? Mr. Durking? Okay, we'll move forward. Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Hill?
Mr. Hill, yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Durking. No, you're gone.
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got that. Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore and Ms. Nieblas are not here. Ms. Guzman?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, is this Ms. Moore?
Yes. I
Oh,
was having
awesome.
problems
What's
with the
your vote?
audio.
Okay, what's your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
And Ms. Sanson?
Oops. Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes. The motion to approve the August 25, 2023 minutes is carried by a vote of 8. I believe we are ready to move on to item number 4, fiscal and budgets update. Fund condition and budget updates, Department of Consumer Affairs budget staff.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning. My name is Harmony DiFilippo, and I'm the budget manager in the DCA budget office. I want to thank the board and executive staff for allowing me the opportunity to present on agenda item 4 and the documents included. First, I'm going to start with the board's expenditures, which is item 4A, one of your materials. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 3. The report includes 22-23 actual expenditures compared to 23-24 budgeted and projected expenditures. Over this 2-year period, costs are relatively similar. As we move to the end of the document, you will see the board had a beginning base budget of $18.127 million. Year to date, the board has expended approximately $5.3 million and is projected to spend a total of $16.6 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of approximately $1.108 million and a reversion of 6.24%. The next document I'll be going over is the board's revenue projections. And that's item 4A, page 2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through September of this year and estimated projected revenue to year end. I will go further into the projections as we transition into the next slide. The next
Harmony,
slide.
Harmony, forgive me for interrupting. Ms. Moore, I think your mic is on, so could you please mute?
Okay. The next slide is item 4A, page 3 of your materials. This is the board's fund condition. As a reminder, we read this document from top to bottom and left to right. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the left column is the board's prior year 22-23 actuals. It shows the board began 22-23 with an adjusted beginning balance of just over 2.5 million, collected 23.323 million in revenues, with 7.149 million from initial license fees, 15.110 million from license renewals, and 1.64 million was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended just over 18 million, which includes 1.368 million in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 22-23 with just over 7.8 million in the reserve balance, or about 5.3 months in reserve. For current year, 23-24, the board projects revenues of just over 24.6 million, with approximately 7.1 million projected from initial license fees, 16.4 million from renewal fees, and 1.1 million from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board is projected to expend approximately 17.9 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of approximately 14.6 million, or 9.5 months in reserve. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close the fiscal months in the current year. A few things to note about the board's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing technical adjustments. The fund balance reserve is the amount of funds remaining at the end of any given fiscal year. The board's fund has a statutory fund balance limit of 24 months, but typically 3 to 6 months is considered sufficient. As you can see, the fund balance is healthy and showing growth over the next 3 years. The budget office has no concerns and will continue to monitor the budget and provide updates to the board on a regular basis. And lastly, I would like to note that the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would create cost pressures on the fund. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition and keep the line of communication open with the board's executive staff for any future needs or expectations. Again, I want to thank the board members and executive staff for allowing me the opportunity to present at today's meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions at this time? Ms. Moore, your hand is up.
I'm trying to get that down. I'm sorry.
No worries. Ms. Schleeks? I see one question there from legal counsel.
This is Christy Shields, Regulations Counsel for the board. So the board did enact through regulation a fee increase that took effect in September. So I was wondering if that is why the reserve for the fund balance is projected to grow in the next fiscal years. Is that correct, or am I reading it incorrectly?
I can answer that, Harmony, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Council, that is exactly right. We, in raising the fees for licensees, applicants, and CE providers, we did substantially augment our revenue stream. It is our hope right now that we build a healthy reserve, and at such time that we have enough data regarding our individual fees plus the school fees plus a few other things, we would like to embark on a intensive revenue study, I think, which would help guide the board in maybe making some adjustments and, forgive me the jargon, right sizing, I think, our revenue expectations.
And I just want to correct, I think it was September of last year, I think, correct?
That's
Yes.
exactly right. And so,
Thank you.
so right now, exactly, we don't have more than just about a year or so with those fees, and about a year and a half or more with the school fees. So we don't really have, I think, a good solid revenue projection out for more than a couple of years. So we were waiting to get a few more years on the books so that we could do a very good analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you so much to the DCA budget staff for coming and speaking to us. We appreciate it. We will move on now to agenda item 5, education reports, recommendations, and possible actions. And I believe that report is being given by Dr. McLeod, yes?
That is correct. And the report is in the packet, so I'm available for any questions if you have any questions about the report.
Let's see. These are the decisions from the period of July 18, 2023 to October 10, 2023. Can I have a motion and a second to approve and ratify the executive officer program decisions for the period from July 18, 2023 to October 10, 2023, listed in the report dated November 7, 2023?
John Dearkin will so move.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second?
Second, let's see more.
Thank you so much. Any discussion or questions? Seeing no discussion or hands raised, any public comment?
We are now accepting public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. If you're having trouble finding that hand button, we have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen where you can type the word comment. We're going to wait just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. And my apologies, my screen seems to have stopped. I cannot tell if there's a hand up. Rebecca, if you're available, will you let us know if we're clear or not? All right, my screen is resumed. I see no request for comment.
Yeah.
I see no request for comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
I do, thank you. I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Did Miss Brown, did she make it? Let's move on. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
You? Mr. Maxey? Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
I don't think Ms. Niebles is here yet. Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. That motion is carried by a vote of 8. All right, I believe we're ready to move on to reconsideration of provisional approval, request to admit students. And we are on number 1, Downey Adult School Vocational Nursing Program. Dr. Fairchild.
Good morning. You have my report. Do you have any questions?
I see no questions from the board. Any board discussion? I see no hands raised. Any public comment?
We are once again open for public comment, this time on the report. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. You will be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And our first request comes from Mariana Pacheco. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
All her help and everything else. She's been great in making sure that we make the changes we needed to make. We made. Again, I want to thank the board for everything that they do for our program. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other... My apologies, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I was just going to ask if there was other comments.
I see none. Do you wish to continue?
I do, thank you so much. All right, I will now do the roll call vote.
Madam Chair, Ken Swenson here. We don't have a motion or a second yet.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Swenson. Can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
John Deerking would so move.
Thank
Leslie
you.
Moore, second.
Thank you. Mr. Swenson, can I ask for a roll call vote?
I recommend proceeding with opening it for public comments to see if there are any further public comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Can we reopen for any further public comment? That was my mistake. I apologize.
Absolutely. We are now open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a couple of seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the motion?
I do. Thank you so much. Let's see. Ms. Brown, I believe, is still not here. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter? Yes, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
No worries. Mr. Durking.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Still don't see Ms. Niebles. Ms. Guzman.
Yes.
You. Ms. Sanson.
Yes.
I am Carol Mountain. I am also a yes. That motion carries by a vote of 8. We will move on to number 2, Integrity College of Health Vocational Nursing Program. Ms. Barrett, Nursing Education Consultant.
Hello, good morning. I have submitted my report for your review. Do you have any questions for me?
Seeing no questions, can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
Alita Carpenter, so moved.
Thank you.
Abraham Hill, second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing none, any public comment?
We are accepting public comment on the motion. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. If you're having trouble finding that hand button, there's a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen where you can type the word comment. Especially our mobile users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them will have your hand button on it. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
I do, thank you.
Madam Chair, Ken Swenson here. We may want to confirm whether anyone from the program is in attendance and put
Thank
that
you.
on the record.
Can we ask moderator if there's anyone here from the program who'd like to speak?
The program director is in attendance.
If anyone would like to speak, please raise a hand. We have that hand button at the bottom of the screen. You may also type the word comment in the lower right-hand corner in the Q&A box. We're going to wait just a few more seconds.
Ms. Thompson, I actually sent you a request to unmute.
Are we able to let the program director speak?
Yes, good morning. Alice Earl Thompson, Director of Vocational Nursing for Integrity College of Health. I am present along with our Vice President of Nursing for Legacy Education, Dr. Michelle Welsh. And we accept the recommendations of the NEC.
Thank you so much. Are there other public comments?
At the moment, there are no other requests for public comment.
Thank you. I think we can move forward. I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking? Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Niebles? Oh, she's not here yet, sorry. Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
Yes.
I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes. That motion carries by a vote of 8. We will now move on to Cypress College Psychiatric Technician Program, and that will be Ms. Davila.
Davila, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
I would like to make a comment about my report. 2 days ago on November 15th, I received an email from Jaime Ramos, Program Director, requesting a change in the start date by delaying the start of the class by 1 week. The original start date request that's listed in my report is January 22nd, 2024, with a graduation date of May 22nd, 2025. The new start date request has been altered by 1 week and is now January 29th, 2024, with a graduation date of May 29th, 2025. The request to change the start date by 1 week does not change my recommendation. So you do have my report and I've commented about the date change. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
Alita Carpenter, so moved.
Seymour,
John
second.
Dearkin.
Is there any
Madam-
comment from representatives of the program?
Madam Chair, just to be clear then, that was the motion and second to adopt, approve the report and adopt the recommendations as modified?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any comment from representatives of the program?
Jaime Ramos. I am the director of the Cypress College Psychiatric Technology Program. And I want to acknowledge Ms. Davila for her complete report. And also we appreciate all the support that she has given to our program. And we accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, can we ask for public comment, please?
This is the moderator. We are open for public comment. Quick question. Are we going to have a motion on this afterward?
Yes, we will be voting. We've had a motion. We will be voting, yes.
All right. Maybe I didn't hear the motion. If you've had a motion, we are open for comments on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We also have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen where you can type the word comment if you wish to make a comment. Seeing no request for comment, do you wish to continue with your motion?
I do. Thank you so much. We will now take a vote. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Durking.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Guzman.
Yes.
Ms. Sanson.
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. This motion is carried by a vote of 8. Right. I believe we are ready to move on to agenda item 6, Executive Officers Report. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning again, everybody. Elaine Yamaguchi, Executive Officer. The written report, of course, is in your packet. There are a couple of things I wanted to call out to you. One, of course, being the biennial State Leadership Accountability Act report. We are going to be publishing our next 2 years report by the end of December. I attached the link to the report. This is something that every state agency does. It's essentially a means of risk assessment and prevention. So generally agencies like ours kind of predict what we see coming down the pipe for the next 2 years and what the management has kind of strategized and believes would be the action plan forward. It's hard really to quantify this, but anyways, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to go back to that. I did want to mention, of course, the final legislative report we'll get to under that, as well as the regulations. Our work with the Respiratory Care Board, I think we reported at about this time last year that the Respiratory Care Board in their sunset bill was authorized to promulgate regulations with regard to licensed vocational nurses, appropriate duties, if you will, with regard to providing respiratory care to patients. I think the board members, most of the board members will recall that we talked about both the possible regulatory language, which we the board had authorized us to express concerns. And more peripherally, a little bit later, the Respiratory Care Board had decided that they would seek an author for legislation. Now, at their October 2023 meeting, their board did authorize them to seek an author for this legislation, which was an improvement. I think we shared the concepts of that legislation back before, when they were just initially talking about it earlier this year. Essentially, their proposed legislation would expand out in the potential workplaces where an LVN could be called upon to provide that level of care. The legislation is better than the package of regs that we did have great concerns on, but it's not all the way there. We do hope to work with our partners in the Respiratory Care Board to move things along a little bit better. We have a couple concerns, which I mentioned in my report, and we will, of course, be continuing to talk with them and work within, I think, DCA. And if they do get an author anytime soon, I hope to be able to have conversations with that author. And the most important thing I want to speak with you about, well, actually, board meeting planning, we have that later in the agenda. But just by way of kind of that foreshadowing, I think the board members are aware that we do have a strategic plan in place. It was approved in 2019 to cover the years 2020 through 2025. And I don't think anybody can disbelieve that the best laid strategic plans go off the glay, as said by I think Chaucer. So yeah, our strategic plan, in a lot of ways, we hit it out of the park. Most notably, I think the enforcement goals that were taken care of neatly and completely on in, but a few of them got changed, by circumstances. So recently, our friends at PCA in the solid department approached us and said, we're asking boards if they want to start adding a diversity, equity, and inclusion supplemental scans and plans for in their existing strategic plans. And they asked me if we'd be interested in that. And I felt like we probably would be very interested based on our experience from the training at our last meeting. But I also noted to them that, our strategic plan we would probably be working in 2024 to build our next plan. And they said, well, why don't we just do it all at once? I thought that'd be a really great idea. Of course, our priority over the next probably 4 or 5 months will be our sunset review. But I think this is a really valuable opportunity. And, I think at this point, so as I said, this is kind of a foreshadowing for the board and our team to start really thinking, in the context of the existing plan of what we have accomplished, which is significant, what we hadn't really envisioned at the time in 2019, and where we think we're going in terms of 25 on. So we'll probably be starting that beginning process of discussing, chunk by chunk. I think the individual board policy committees will probably want to look at their own areas and discuss that with staff and then move forward. But I would imagine that we will be having our friends at Solid come to the board and lead either workshops or trainings or even action meetings. So look forward to that. As I said, we won't be probably doing a lot of it before spring, but do start thinking about it. And if you don't have our strategic plan, it is on the website, but I can certainly send it over to you. So at this point, let me just pause for any questions.
I just want to say that the last training that Solid did for us was really exemplary. I appreciate it very much. Now, I don't know that we actually need an action
on this for the to move forward. But as I said, I wanted to make certain that the board was aware that we're edging close to that time. So are there any questions I could answer or any thoughts that any board member would like to share?
This Alita Carpenter. I didn't have any questions on that section of it, but your report has a pretty extensive amount of legislative reporting, and I didn't know if you wanted to entertain questions at this point or later in our meeting when the legislative and regulations portion comes up.
You know, I thought about that, and it is noticed later in the agenda, so I think it'd be probably more timely to move it to that. But of course, I'm always happy to answer questions from you.
Well, this is fairly pertinent to the moment. Segment of AB 544 that states that members must appear visible on camera during the open portion of the meeting.
Yes.
We have our cameras on right now.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, the 544 is going to be interesting to implement. And as of January 1, of course, that becomes the rule of the day. We have to have the cameras on unless the board member says at the outset, I cannot have my camera on because the XYZ, it's not working, the bandwidth won't allow it, things like that. So a board member would have to acknowledge why they were not. The simple fact that we would have to have a quorum of the board members in a single location, it's not nearly as helpful as the governor's executive order language was in our ability to meet completely online. We can still meet completely online, but we would have to revert to a lot of the old rules where we are publishing all the locations, you know, which as I said, and I think the one thing that I think helps mitigate that, but I don't know that's going to be totally applicable here or make much of a difference, is that if a board member cannot travel or cannot be present in the physical location where the rest of the board members are, they may file with, I assume, the board president and the executive officer for exemption, and can then log on remotely, but it doesn't count against that physical quorum in the main location. So there's a couple little improvements, but the best thing about this bill, of course, is it allows us a little bit more flexibility, and it does have a sunset clause for, I believe, 2 years from now, so that the state would be able to really analyze, was this a helpful policy? Did it make things more difficult in certain cases? So we'll see. This board, I think, we can go back to meeting mostly online in a lot of cases. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we'll, as I said, I wanted to have a little bit more of a conversation specific to at least our scheduled meetings in 2024, and then kind of pencil in some dates for 2025 toward the end of the agenda. But like I said, it's a challenge, and we'll learn to adapt. I think by the third or fourth try, we'll probably be really good at it, and we'll move from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi. That was very good information. I had some of those same questions. Any other board discussion or questions? Any public comment?
We are now accepting public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And from our Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner, I see Denise Turgrade. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning.
With SEIU United Healthcare Workers. We represent over 100,000 allied healthcare workers, including LVNs, in California and across the Western United States. But we also represent respiratory therapists, and so wanted to express our appreciation to the BVNPT for your continued focus on the ongoing regulations and now legislation that the Respiratory Care Board is moving forward, and appreciate the close look at the facilities and sites because although we want all of our healthcare workers to be practicing at the top of their scope, we also want to make sure that our healthcare workers are, adequately supported, practicing in the right facility with all the right supports and training. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
I do, thank you. We will move on to B, Executive Committee Report. That is in your packets. And I'm wondering if there's any board discussion or questions. Seeing none, can we please move on to public comment?
We are once again open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue?
I do, thank you. I believe we are ready to move on to agenda item 7, licensing and evaluations report, recommendations and possible actions. Ms. Brown.
Good morning. The licensing division report is included in your packet. Were there any questions?
Seeing no questions, I wonder if we can take public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. If you're having trouble finding that hand button, please use the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and type the word comment. Send that comment to all participants. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
I do, thank you. I believe that we are ready to move on to agenda item 8, legislative and regulations report, recommendations and possible actions. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes, the Reg committee did not meet prior to this board meeting, but I do believe that Ms. Yamaguchi has an extensive report prepared for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Chair of the committee. I do apologize for not having the committee meet. It was such awkward timing between August and now, with the session having ended and then everything kind of being in limbo. So as I say, I do apologize, and I hope to make the committee work a little bit more in the coming year. Brace yourselves. I think it's going to be kind of a busy year overall. But yes, we did want to talk a little bit about some of the bills that that BVNPT was watching. One, I know that the board will remember that we spoke with them and talked in fairly deep detail about the original policy behind AB 1722, which would have made vocational nurses eligible to be hired as school nurses, which was, forgive me, a bad idea on so many fronts. It would have just increased so much liability, and it really wouldn't have provided the kind of expansion of resources that I think the author had in mind. And over the course of the year, this bill did get changed substantially. First and most importantly, it made very, very obvious acknowledgement in the language that no LVN could be hired and asked to do things that were outside their scope, and certainly not without the statutorily required direction and supervision of an MD or an RN or even a naturopathic doctor. And secondly, so what this bill wound up eventually being is allowing a local education entity like a county board of ed to hire a vocational nurse to work for the school nursing program overall, as long as I said, they were working under their scope and under proper direction. So given the fact that this changed so much, it did get passed and signed into law, but I don't know that it's going to have really, I think, a net effect on the issue at large. It's actually, obviously, a school nurse, a credentialed school nurse, let me correct myself, is an extremely well-trained, very experienced professional who can operate without a whole lot of supervision direction. And frankly, LVNs don't do that. LVNs need to be corrected, and they're not, I mean, beyond, I think, bandaging owies and certain other things, as long as a student has, for example, their own personal plan of care that they could implement, like providing medication, et cetera, it wouldn't be appropriate. So as I said, I don't know that this is going to have much of a net effect on the overall problem, which is actually very severe, that certainly in rural neighborhoods, there are schools and counties that haven't had anybody at all who was trained and qualified to provide any kind of medical support or assistance to their students. So we'll hope for the best, and we'll see if this does work. But as I said, the fact that no LVN is going to be able to work in these circumstances without that real tight scope and that real substantial supervision. I think the School Nurses Association was still a little dubious about this bill at the end, because essentially then, you're asking the school nurses that are already pretty swamped to take on a little bit more intense supervision duties if they had LVNs looking for them at certain schools. So as I said, I don't know that this is actually going to get moved. And frankly, if a school district is not, let's say, really fiscally solvent, it's also not going to be, I think, a really good option for them. Can I pause for any questions on that, Bill? Okay, so let me move on to SB 143. Actually, this was the emergency bill that came through to allow us through the end of this year to teleconference and meet under the same parameters that we had under the governor's executive order during COVID. So hence today's meeting, that we are allowed to move fairly easily and via remote meeting. Obviously, it expires at the end of December 31st. So it was helpful. And so it's allowing us to do some good business through the end of this year. We already talked a little bit about 544. It's going to be interesting, as I said, to figure out exactly what this means. I think every state agency is really trying to figure out exactly how to plan to operate under the terms of 544. I just had as an interesting coincidence, I had a board meeting of the Yolo County Fair Board last night, where we spent a long time really talking about, well, is this going to help us or not? And we found out we're unfortunately, it's not going to help us very much at all there. But as I said, there are some pros and cons here, and the bill is, of course, sunsetting after a couple of years, so that we can look at, whether these policies should go forward, should be adapted, or just altogether removed. So it'll be interesting, as I said, because, and I do want to add just one thing, and we talked about this quite a bit over the past couple of years. Ironically, for BDNPT, meeting via WebEx or whatever has, I think, really expanded our public access, because folks can log on and participate in the meeting without traveling up to Sacramento for, and I think this is especially great for the schools, because, I never did like the idea that they would travel to Sacramento or to where we were in Southern California, find a place to park, drive through, and then be at this meeting all day for, 10 or 15 minutes with the board. So this, of course, allows them to be in their own offices, not have to travel, and still be able to participate with the board. So as I said, we think that there are some pros and cons, and I have to think that the issues that had been raised in concern overall about continuing the overall WebEx possibility, they weren't raised in conjunction, unless I'm badly mistaken, they weren't raised, certainly weren't raised about this board, and I don't think they were raised about any of the DCA boards that I know about. So as I said, learning experience, and we will certainly be adapting how we do business over the course of the next year. Final bill that we wanted to call for your attention is, of course, SB 816. This, of course, was really a tiny minor thing in the scope of things, but really important. I think when we talked about this bill before, we mentioned that there was an inadvertent error or language problem in our sunset bill, and the Office of Administrative Law, while we were working through the regulatory process, pointed this language error out to us, and this bill corrects that for us so that we now may correctly implement the fee reduction for community colleges that was authorized by our sunset bill. So let me stop there again. So any questions or comments on legislation? No?
Well, and I might say another positive note about being able to meet online has been a pretty substantial savings to BVNPT's budget.
Oh, it has. Absolutely, Ms. Carpenter, you're dead on. When we first were asked by the department and the agency, we estimated that we were saving something like $40,000 or $50,000 a year by being able to meet via WebEx. Okay, so that's, of course, our legislative season. I think everybody has heard me talk enough about the sunset, and so I know I'm coming back to that part in a minute. So let me just move to rulemaking. We have some updates.
Executive Officer Yamaguchi.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Christy Shield, Regulations Counsel for the board. I did want to also, we've discussed in the past SB 372. I don't know if you want to touch on that. There may need to be implementing regulations for that. That's the bill that would require the board to update license records if the board receives government issued documentation demonstrating a legal change of name or gender. And it would allow a licensee to request their prior name be removed from the online license verification system.
Thank you for reminding me. I had actually completely forgotten about that, because I think for our board, in practice, it has not been a really onerous task, and we get these requests very seldom. But you rightly point out that this is probably something that we're going to need to look into in terms of rulemaking. Thank you. But it's a very solid policy, and I think, you know, I was actually really grateful, I think, to the author and sponsors of the bill. It basically will help protect licensees and individuals who have made their transitions and changed their names and their identities, and allowing them to make certain that their licenses and their careers are not are not, you know, impacted by the dead name, as it's called, so that they can fully be the person that they are trying to be or have become. So, like I said, I think the policy itself was terrific. We didn't call it out because, as I said, we don't get a lot of these requests, and for us, it is really a fairly easy transition. But like I said, if we do need to create some regulatory language, we should prepare for that. So at that point, what a neat transition into our rulemaking update. And if I could actually impose on Ms. Shields to discuss those updates, we don't have action needed on these, but we do, of course, have some updates on those.
Sure. This is Christy Shields. So on item 1 for the rulemaking involving AB 1536 new school program approval process, with this rulemaking, we are attempting to make permanent the regulations the board adopted by emergency in the last 2 years. And I received the rulemaking package from staff on November 6th, and legal review was completed early this morning, November 17th. I am currently awaiting approval from your executive management of the suggested revisions to the package. I am hoping to move the package forward soon because our deadline for completing the rulemaking for the board is March 8th, 2024. And that seems like a long ways away, but there's a lot of control agencies we have to get through before we can adopt the regulations permanently. So again, worked on it as quickly as I could to try to turn that around because I know you're in a time crunch for that. So any questions from the board on that item? Okay, so President Mountain, did you want me to move on to the next item?
Yes, please.
And then we'll take public comment, Ken, after I'm done with the updates, if that's okay.
Yes, I concur.
Okay, thank you. So item 2, I was finalizing my review of the disciplinary guidelines when the AB 1536 package came in. So I will return to finishing up my edits on that package. And as soon as I'm done, I anticipate the package moving this month to internal review. It's been a long process. There's a lot of changes for this rulemaking, so it's taken me a while to update that package. But I again apologize for the delay, but there's been a lot, as you can see, going on. On the next item, delegation, I think. Yes, thank you. Delegation of certain functions. I'm currently awaiting the rulemaking package from staff. I know that the board currently still has a vacancy for its regulations coordinator, so things are taking a little bit longer to get to the legal office, but that one should be relatively quick. Once I get that package, it should be relatively short and easy to process. So we hope to have an update on that package and some movement by the next board meeting.
Wonderful.
And then, are we on the calendar yet? Oh, no, that's after. Okay, so any questions on the updates I've provided on the current rulemakings that are in process? And then, Dr. Mountain, did you want to take comment on those updates?
I see no questions. So are we ready to move on to the rulemaking calendar?
Madam President, we do have somebody in the attendees with their hand up.
Oh, then let's absolutely go to public comment.
Thank you.
We are now accepting public comment on the update. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Our first request comes from caller user number 3. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You may need to dial *6 in order to unmute. Hold on just a moment. We're sending that request now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. All right. Hello, good morning to the board, Ms. Yamaguchi. I had a public comment. My name is Nani Mingo. I am an LVN for 25 years. I had a comment regarding LVNs being able to work in schools. I would hope that the board would take into consideration that for LVNs that have many, many years of experience, this can be in the time periods of which LVNs worked in hospitals, triage, we've had all kinds of various experience in the past. And I myself have worked with and know that there are LVNs that are extremely highly qualified to work in schools that could vastly help students of all ages. And I would just like the board to keep that into consideration. I do appreciate Ms. Yamaguchi's comments. And I do understand that with the new era of nurses coming out of school, new grads, and even over the past.
This is the moderator, caller 3. Are you still with us?
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. I got to learn to keep it short.
I apologize if I didn't understand. Are you finished?
I have said my public comment, yes.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other requests for comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. I believe we're at discussion and possible action to approve Board 2024 rulemaking calendar. Is that correct?
I believe your sunset report was next on the agenda, but you can take them out of order if you like.
No, let's do the sunset report. Is that Ms. Yamaguchi?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Well, we're getting close. We're a little bit behind of where I had hoped to be this month, but we are very close to finished with the report itself. It'll still need to be vetted by our esteemed council, which I hope to do today, if at all possible. So that is, send it over anyways. The sunset report, of course, needs to be reviewed and approved by the entire board. And so really sunset report and this discussion of a calendar kind of go hand in hand, because we must turn in the report to the legislature the first week of January. And so that means that we do need to ask the board for a special meeting in December. We've outlined a couple of possible dates for the board, which would allow us to have that in front of you for at least a week, hopefully 2, and then be able, of course, to provide the proper 10-day notice for the board meeting. Now, the trickiest thing about making the report public, not public information, of course, is that it is going to be very complicated and time consuming to make it ADA compliant. There are a vast number of tables and charts in it with a lot of data, which is the most critically needed information for the report. So like I said, I didn't really have much of an update per se, except for the fact that in the context of the board calendar, we actually do need to, and that's the item later in the agenda. That would be number 10. That I will need to ask the board to have a special meeting, but I'd be happy to answer any questions beyond that simple logistics part. Okay. Now we can go to the rulemaking calendar.
All right, so we're ready to move on to the rulemaking calendar for 2024, correct?
Correct. Ms. Shields?
So in your packet at item 8B5, there is a draft 2024 rulemaking calendar. Every year in February, we're required to report to the Office of Administrative Law the regulations the board plans on submitting for that year. It's a legal requirement. You're not prohibited from adding other rulemakings that may come up unexpectedly during the course of the year, but the legal recommendation is that you try to put together a list of all the regulations you intend to at least initiate in the next calendar year. So that's what we've done here in this item. And so you'll see we have the respiratory tasks and services by LVN's regulations to implement SB 1436 on there. We have the AB 1536 program approval process we just discussed to hopefully complete next year. We have the unprofessional conduct and disciplinary guidelines regulation, again, that we hope to complete next year. The delegation of certain functions regulation. And then we have other regulations that have not been worked on, but that are still in concept development. And those include the Article 5 schools updates for the schools of vocational nursing and psychiatric technicians. Then we also have possible supervision and continuing education regulations for LVNs supervised by naturopathic doctors that would implement SB 994, again, still in concept development, but letting OAL know that all of these are sort of your strategic plan for rulemaking next year. If the board has no questions, the motion we are requesting is that the board approve the 2024 rulemaking calendar as set forth in the meeting materials.
So moved. Alita Carpenter.
Abraham Hill, second.
So at this point, we should move on to any public comment, correct?
Right.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. If you would like to make a comment on the motion, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise a hand. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We also have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen where you may type the word comment and send that comment to all participants if you're having trouble finding that hand button. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
I do, thank you. All right, we will do a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Is Ms. Neblis, has she joined us yet? It is 10 o'clock. All right, I don't
I have
see
not seen her. I've been keeping an eye out.
Thank you. Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain, and I also vote yes. That motion carries by a vote of 8. I believe we are ready to move forward to agenda item 9, enforcement report recommendations and possible actions. Mr. Maxey, chairperson, Ms. Moore, board.
Morning, this is go ahead.
Ms. Wood, are you doing our enforcement division report?
I am, thank you. This is Antoinette Wood, the Enforcement Division Chief. You do have the Enforcement Division report in front of you. I would like to go over a few things. I wanted to report from our Enforcement Committee that we did discuss the next PSA. We will be holding, as the Education Division is going to be working on a PSA. So after they have completed that, we will start our PSAs again. I also wanted to note that we have seen some changes in the amount of cases coming into the Enforcement Division. And is there any questions for the report?
So you said you see more cases coming in. Are you seeing any trending, like they're more of one thing or another?
Not necessarily at this point, to be honest. It just seems like we're getting more and more cases. We're moving them in the same way we were moving them before, so I think we're good for right now. But I just wanted to let you know that it does seem like we're getting more cases in.
Okay, it doesn't really surprise me, and thank you. All right, so do we now call for the Enforcement Committee report, Mr. Maxey?
Good morning, everyone. So I'll read the, so the board's disciplinary guidelines rulemaking have been sent over to the DCA headquarter regulations attorney, Christy Shillage, who is currently completing her review prior to sending it to the Office of the Administrative Law. And then also the enforcement cost savings. I just want to reiterate that. As discussed at prior board meetings, the Enforcement Division has implemented several cost-saving measures. This includes changing the license applicant case review unit to program technical and turning the staff service manager 1 into a special investigator and a AGPA into an SI. The cost saving for the SSI to PT3 will save an average of $6,500 per month. The additional SIs have allowed the SI unit to take back 109 cases. Since it costs approximately $220 per hour for DOIs to conduct the investigation, the BVMPT has saved approximately $600,000.82 for this. The Enforcement Committee is committed to finding and implementing additional opportunities for cost savings. And then finally, currently the Enforcement Division is struggling with a compaction issue. Due to the recent contract negotiated raises, the Enforcement Division Chief, a Staff Service Manager 2, can oversee the work of the special investigator supervisor due to a pay compaction issue. It is unknown what the effect this issue will have on the enforcement division ability to continue to close the cases in a timely manner. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Maxey. I see no questions. I believe we're ready to move on to agenda item 10. Update, discussion, and possible action, board meeting logistics 2024-25. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you again, Madam President. Do we have a mocked up calendar, Rebecca?
Yeah, give me a second. Just start talking.
So the first order of business, of course, is for the board members to kind of look at your calendars at this point, because, as I said, we do have the need to do a special meeting in the month of December of this year. I had been looking at that first week of December, so the 6th, 7th, or 8th. I don't know that it'll be a very long meeting, but the most important thing, of course, we'll have a few other small business items, but the most important item, of course, is the discussion and approval of the sunset report. So I wonder if anybody wants to make a case for a specific time and date, or if I should send out like a doodle poll, which I would do probably today or Monday at the latest. So like I said, I wanted to make certain that I got some input from the board members to find what would work the best. I also understand there's probably a couple of other small business items, possibly some in closed session. Madam Chair,
I really like the idea of a doodle poll. I know for sure that I can do the 6th or the 7th, but the 8th is absolutely out. So
okay.
I wonder if other people already have obligations.
If it's, I'd love to hear them now, but if you wanted to just email me that later, and I will, of course, follow up with a poll. But it's a really important, it's very, very important that we do this. As it is, the folks at Reaper Graphics aren't real happy with me about printing and publishing of the report. Okay, so then moving on then, you see the 2024 meetings, which we approved about this time last year. We don't anticipate any actual changes per se in the dates, but what we did want to talk about, of course, is the meetings that would need to be in person as opposed to online. I know that Dr. Mountain has expressed her opinion that the meeting in which we do the board elections, it seems like a very good thing to do in person. I would also remind the board that we want to do 1 or 2 board meetings that has the extra day for training, for team building, and in this case, coming up this year, we would probably want to do some work sessions on strategic plan. So again, the 2024 calendar itself is fairly well laid out. This, of course, obviously doesn't include any potential emergency meetings, but I will tell you that depending on the outcomes of our sunset review hearing in March, there may be the need for, a meeting before the May board meeting, for example, to discuss any follow-up that's really urgent to the legislative committees, because they will be creating a sunset renewal bill for us, hopefully. It may be that we would need to meet over the summer to discuss concepts and language. So I wanted the board members, again, to be aware that we don't have an idea of any other special meetings to be called, but, to be aware that there probably will be a need here and there. On the average, we've seen over the past, I think, 4 years, generally speaking, there's been at least two or three special meetings needing to be called. So anyways, again, if somebody doesn't have any specific preferences in terms of like the in-person or online meetings for 24, if we could flip to 25, Ms. Ball has kind of conjectured a potential calendar based on pretty much the past history and whatever holidays are in play. She's done a really good job here, by the way, of trying really hard not to schedule anything too close together to holiday weekends, because that's usually a problem. Ms. Carpenter, did you have a comment?
No, it seems as though, historically speaking, though, if we have our in-person meetings on February and August, we have a pretty good turnout, and it doesn't seem to interfere with most people's calendars.
Okay. Then, as I said, you know, let's. In fact, why don't I add that poll as well, just to see if there's like, because it'll give you a little bit of chance to look at your own calendars and think through your other obligations. But at the time, you know, right now, I would like you to approve the 2025 dates, at least conceptually, because, you know, it's a year out. If things change, the board can always approve that change. But as I said, I would ask the board to approve this calendar for 2025 for now. Madam Chair.
So this is the time that I should call for a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations in a second.
Yes, please.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve and adopt?
John Deere-King would so move.
Thank you.
Alita Carpenter, second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Any public comment?
We are accepting public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Our first request comes from calling user 3. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You will need to dial *6 in order to unmute.
Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Yes. Hi. Can the board hear me?
I believe they can. I've got some nods.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Again, my name is Nani Mingo, and I missed the end of the enforcement. This was for item 9. I'm sorry. I wanted to get in there on the enforcement. I had a comment regarding if it would be possible for LVNs to be granted full removal of a notice attached to their license after completion of a successful probation. Is that possible?
Madam Chair,
because
this is not germane to the action item, so I would recommend that the caller be referred to the appropriate contact at the board itself to answer this question.
So, Mr. Swenson, would that be referral to Ms. Wood?
I think Ms. Wood would be the appropriate person.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so
do you have
much.
a number for Ms. Wood?
Hi, this is Antoinette. I'll go ahead and look up your phone number and give you a call.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And there are no other requests for comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
I do. Thank you so much. At this time, I'll take a roll call vote. I do not see Ms. Brown. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Once again, I don't see Ms. Nieblas. Is she here? Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
Yes.
My name is Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. That motion is carried by a vote of 8. I believe we are ready to move on to public item 11, which is public comment on items not on the agenda. Please note the board may not discuss or take any action on any item raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Moderator?
We are now accepting public comment for agenda item 11. If you'd like to make a comment on items not on the agenda, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Keep in mind we have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. You may type the word comment into that box and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for comments not on the agenda. Seeing none, do you wish to continue?
I do, thank you. I believe we are ready for agenda item 12, suggestions for future agenda items. I see none. Mr. Swenson, do I need to open this up for public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, closed session. The board will now convene in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126, subdivision A1, to deliberate and vote on disciplinary matters. Can I have a motion to approve this meeting adjourning at the conclusion of closed session?
John Deerking will so move.
Thank you.
Alita Carpenter, second.
Thank you. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing none, any public comment?
We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests.
And as we wait, I will say thank you very much, board members, staff, and members of the public for attending this meeting. Appreciate all your time and effort. Have a great Thanksgiving.
It looked like we had to take a vote, but if we don't have to, let's just move to closed session. It's all good. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. I echo Ms. Yamaguchi's words.
I believe we should take a vote on the motion to make it official.
Okay.
That's correct.
Ms. Carpenter, can we adjourn this meeting at 11:35?
Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Sanson?
I'm sorry. Question, did you say 11:35 or 10:35?
No, I apologize. It will be at the end of this closed session. It's 11:35 right now. We're moving to closed session.
Yes.
So to be more specific, the motion is to adjourn to and retire to closed session, and the matter will not, the agenda will be complete at that point, and the board will not reconvene in open session just for the purpose of closing the meeting after closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson. As well said. I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes, and that motion is carried by a vote of 8. I believe we are ready to move to closed session.
May I request a 5-minute break?
Absolutely. You want 10 minutes instead?
5 is fine.
It's going to take a few minutes for us to get ready on the WebEx side.
So go ahead, board members, and take a few minutes here.
Thank you.